I need to make sure nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I started telling every single person that I am an investor, because I would reply when everybody asks you, what's your job? We all get this question. Well, I would reply just like everybody. Well, I work for the local county government. I do IT. I'm basically projecting out to the world that the value that I put on myself comes from my job. No, my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God, from myself, from my family. So right then and there, I started telling everybody that I'm an investor. Now, it may so happen that 100% of my money came from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor.
Welcome back to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. I have the second ever Dustin featured today on the podcast, second only to me. I was a guest on my own show in episode 1 of this thing when we kicked it off. But Dustin Heiner, not Heiner, just like I'm Riechmann, not Reichman. We have obviously have plenty of things to talk about today. We're not going to talk mostly about our names. We're going to talk about passive income, real estate investing, podcast networks, and all that good stuff. Dustin and I kind of stumbled into each other at PodFest in Orlando in January, kind of hit it off, and have had some great conversations since then. I said, hey, we should record some of this stuff and let people in on some of the magic and the things that he teaches. So Dustin, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to share a microphone with you here and learn all about your journey and your podcasting and your real estate investing and all the stuff you have to share. So I'm just going to basically hand it off to you at this point, and you start wherever you think is most appropriate to bring us into your world and talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, what's up, Dustin? Thank you so much for having me. Do you ever get people calling you Justin or? Oh yeah, because I get Rusty all the time. It's just
here's a really funny thing that no one else is going to care about, but you do. So I have I run cohorts for the Podcast Profits Accelerator, and the next one, as we record this, starts tomorrow. I'm Dustin. We have a Rustin who had never actually met a Rustin, and a Dusty in the group. And I'm like, man, if we had a Justin in here, we would be completely screwed. We would not be able to keep ourselves straight. But yes, I get Justin, and then my wife is Bethany, and she gets called Stephanie all the time. So we do Justin and Stephanie as dinner reservations sometimes just for fun. So
that's awesome, Dustin. Well, no, thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah. I love a couple things. Number one, real estate investing. Real estate investing helps me to where I literally don't work and I make money. I make money in passive income. I buy rental properties, and we can walk through all that. But then I also love helping people how to invest in real estate. I started a podcast. We are over 2 million downloads on that one. Now it's usually just a solo show, me teaching people how to do this. But in the end, it's a means to an end to helping people to invest. And podcasting is a fantastic way to do it. But in the end, I realized that financial freedom allowed me to have so much more time, 40 plus hours of my life that I used to work for somebody else. Now it goes back to me where I can then serve other people. But then, I come on podcasts and talk to great people like you, to go to conferences and meet other people. So it's just a blessing to have freedom in your life.
Absolutely. I love that. And that can sort of be our central theme today is freedom. And I think, freedom through the passive income and the real estate investing, freedom through entrepreneurship, even freedom through podcasting and relationship building in the way that we're really blessed to be able to do that today and at conferences like PodFest. So that's awesome. Yeah. So for context, before we get into sort of exactly what you're up to today, where did this whole thing start for you with passive income and real estate investing?
Totally. Yeah. So I personally, just like everybody, we're all taught to go to school, get good grades. And then you take those good grades, you go to college, university, get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt. And then you get a piece of paper called a degree. And you go and try to shop around to other businesses, organizations to get a quote unquote career, and then work 40 plus years of your life, and then hopefully retire at 65, 70 years old and live on 40% of what you managed to save that entire time. And I call it a J.O.B. Your job is J.O.B., which means you're living just over broke because your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of your pocket. So I'm doing that exact same thing. But then I bought in 2006, before the crash 2008, I bought one rental property. And that one rental property I realized was amazing. I remember the check, plain as day, $317. I could vision my mind because it was so amazing. $317 that I got from this one property. I didn't do a thing, but I knew I needed to be an investor, but life started getting in the way. You know how it always happens. I had a regular sit-down desk job, the most stable, secure job you could ever think of. Technology. I was doing technology at the local county government in California. California is not going away. The government's definitely not going away, and technology is not going away. So I get the most risk-averse job. Well, I'm doing that as well as I bought that one property. I knew I needed to be an investor, like to go all in, but life started getting in the way. My wife and I started having kids. Eventually, we had our fourth child, but this is what shoved me into it, like just shoved me head first into real estate investing. So when my wife had her fourth child, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and all that good stuff. I go back to work after 2 weeks of being off. And at the same week I get back to work on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? I said, sure. And I hung up the phone for a second. I thought, why in the world are they calling me in the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. So I'm sitting there thinking about, oh, wow, actually, a couple months before, there were some rumors or some rumbling going on in the county, because we're in local county government, that there could potentially be layoffs because there was problems with income or revenue from taxes. And I immediately shook it off. I said, there's no way I could get laid off. My bosses think I do a great job. I've got 12, 13 years seniority here. Everything's going great. So I shook it off, but I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Well, this hallway is not very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step that I took, it felt like the hallway got longer and longer and longer. And it felt like my feet became lead bricks because the weight of potentially losing my job was starting to crush down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there. Super sweet, nice old lady. And she's trying to sheepishly grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. She says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? So I go and I take my seat. And then I start thinking about my life. I started thinking this entire plan that I was told by other people, well, did I just waste my life following this plan if I get laid off right now? And then, oh my goodness, we just had our fourth child. If I can't provide food for my family, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves are just starting to rain down on me. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up, and out walks a coworker of mine with a piece of paper in her hands. She's noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you can tell her world has been rocked. She passes by me, and my boss says, Dustin, would you please come in the office? Well, I get up, and I go into his office, and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. This is the reason why I tell the story. So I take that layoff notice. I go back to my desk, just getting laid off, and I realize two things. Number one, I need to get another job. I needed to find another way to provide for my family. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county. A different department wasn't having those issues. Check, got that job. Second thing, sitting there in that chair, just getting laid off, I realized I need to make sure this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I started telling every single person that I am an investor, because I would reply when everybody asks you, what's your job? We all get this question. Well, I would reply just like everybody. Well, I work for the local county government. I do IT. I'm basically projecting out to the world that the value that I put on myself comes from my job. No, my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God and from myself and from my family. So right then and there, I started telling everybody that I'm an investor. Now, it may so happen that 100% of my money came from my job. That's now my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So fast forward the story. Started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250, $350, $450, or $500 or more dollars a month in 2006. Now I have 30 plus properties, but the last part of the story, I realized I was losing money working at this job, even though I was making $70,000, $80,000 a year, because my time is worth so much more than I was getting paid. So last part of the story, after I had plenty of property, 20 plus properties, I went to my new boss, and a great boss, and I said, hey boss, I'm laying you off. And we jokingly laughed and everything. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I don't have to do a thing. I own real estate that makes me money without working. So last quick part of the story, I would walk to and from my car to my job 1.5 miles both ways each day because I was too frugal to pay for parking. It was downtown. I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again, because I now have a way that makes me money in passive income where I worked one time, bought one property, and then I have experts do all the work for me. And everybody, listen to this. I want you to realize that your boss will never pay you what you're worth. You're worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. This is how you know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If they paid you what you're worth, they'd go broke. So instead, what I suggest is figuring out a way to make passive income. Again, work one time, get paid over and over and over again. What I found was that I created a business that owns real estate, and that real estate, that's what works for me. But then I hire experts. They make sure that the property is making me money, that's fixed up. They do all the work, which we can get into all that, but I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
Yeah. I mean, like my mind, my engineering mind, I guess, starts to go to like chronology. And I'm like, man, how fast did this stuff happen? So one thing I like that you said from a sort of a mindset shift is, even though from the IRS standpoint or whatever, like you were technically a full-time employee, like in a moment you just decided, I'm a part-time employee. I might be here 40 hours a week, but my full-time identity as in my profession is as an investor. And that's what I'm going to introduce myself as. I am now an investor. And it wasn't that anyone gave you a card or a degree or any permission for that. You're just like, I am. I just decided I'm an investor. And so then you start to be that, which then you start to act that way, and you start to, that starts to become your reality. So I think that's a really important mindset shift for anyone, whether you can declare and be whatever identity you want to be. And a lot of times we're trying to tease out sort of the why, but it kind of screams in your story. It's freedom, right? Like it's the why, like why become an entrepreneur, why get into real estate investing. We'll get into like why you teach it now and do conferences and stuff like that. But for your own personal story in this chapter, it's really clear. You mean like you were stable, full-time employee, got scared to death through a layoff. It wasn't like you flipped a switch and now you're Mr. Passive Income and you didn't have to work again. You still went back to work. But yeah, I guess getting back to my original commentary. So 2006, you bought a rental while you're at your original job. You get laid off. At some point, now you've got 20 properties. So kind of fill that gap. And then we'll kind of go from 20 properties, Dustin, kind of to present day and talk about the evolution there. But there sounds like a pretty major change for you and your family from the first property to the 20th and all the stuff that happened with your job. So I love the summation of that.
It totally was a transformation. Well, I'll say it this way too. The first property, so this is 2006 when I first started investing, and I was watching one of the late night infomercials because that's what you do when you are working a job. You just watch TV too and just go to watch TV. I don't watch TV anymore now because I have too many businesses and too many real estate, like too many fun things that I'm doing. But I watched a late night infomercial, and they said, "Hey, we're coming to your town, free 2-hour seminar to, teach you how to invest in real estate." I was like, "Great!" I ran to that seminar, and then it was horrible. It was all hype and sales pitch. They said, "Now run to the back. It's normally $1 billion, but it's $1,000 a day for a 2-day seminar." So I went to that. Anyways, fast forward, I got suckered into this, but they were basically just salesmen. That's all they were. They weren't really, they might be investors, but what they taught, they didn't teach the right things. So my first property that I bought, that property manager that I had, I was living in California, invested in Ohio. So I had a property manager. I followed what those gurus told me that I got suckered into, but my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months because I didn't know what I was doing. I just followed what they said. And then I'll tell you what they said, but I'll have you quickly forget it because I'll tell you the right way in just a couple seconds. So they said, find a property anywhere in the country, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property. Then you find a tenant, and then you find a property manager. Well, in my opinion, that's all about backwards. Because I did that, my property manager started stealing from me. So that's the first start. But then I realized if I just hung my head and said, it doesn't work, and just went back to working, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
Figured they've done it in the past. There's got to be a better way. But I've always been entrepreneurial growing up. I mean, I had a convenience store that I started from the ground up. I had a graphic website design company. I had a skateboard manufacturing business. So I started businesses, but I was always working that dead end job. Well, I said, from this real estate, what if I approach it differently? Remember, I started in 2006. Property manager started stealing from me, but then I realized I need to approach this from a business mindset. Now, if somebody's been listening to this and they're like, Dustin, I've been investing, but it's hard. The reason why it's hard is if you listen to those quote unquote gurus, they'll tell you, you need to be an investor. My opinion, no. Stop being an investor. Start being a business owner. You're an investor. You think your property that you own is your business. No. Your business owns inventory. When I did what those gurus told me to do and thought my business was my property, no. They started stealing from me. Here's what you do instead. So I'm going to give you the groundwork for how you can actually do this. So this is going from one property, now scaling. Because if you're a mom and pop, meaning you have 2 or 3, 4 properties, you're managing yourself, you can't scale the business because you don't have enough time. There's so many other things going on. Instead, what we do is we build a business. And so starting in 2006, once I realized I needed to build a business that then runs the business for me, which will give you an example. Let's say you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all the good stuff. Well, you would not sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in on the ground. You wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. But what you would do, and this is the same for every business, real estate, brick and mortar, you name it, podcasting business, every single business is exactly the same. What you would do is you'd get the gondolas, the convenience store. You get the gondolas, the shelving units, all the candy bars going, the countertops, cold storage, cash registers, bank accounts, insurance, employees, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Same thing with real estate investing. You find the property managers, contractors, plumbers, roofers, inspectors, mortgage brokers, wholesalers, realtors. You find everybody in the business before you buy any inventory. Once you build the business, your property is a piece of inventory that you put into your business and you hire experts to do all the work for you. So getting back to my timeline, 2006, did it wrong. 2007 and 8, realized I needed to do this right, built a business, and then fast forward buying property after property. The reason why I could buy so many was because I could scale it because I had other people managing the property. I had other people fixing up the property. I had other people giving me money, lending me money, or even borrowing money from friends and family members to doing seller financing. There are so many ways to get financing. But when you realize if you build a business, that business can build on itself and it doesn't depend on you to do all that work. Does that make complete sense? Hopefully that makes sense that what you do is you build a business, you buy the inventory, but then you also hire the experts to help you make sure you're doing it all right.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I think this, if people have had false starts in real estate, or they've, like me, maybe they've thought a lot about this and they've listened to a lot of podcasts and they've watched some YouTube videos or whatever, and they I get the benefit, but they haven't pulled the trigger. I think this is a big part of that, and it's this idea that, man, it seems like a lot to go through for $317 a month. It's like for the first property. And so I like what your mindset is. Like, it's not about the first property. And if you're like in this to manage one property, that's really not worth it. But if you approach it as like it's actually a business and properties are just kind of the inventory of the business, that makes total sense. And so building the team first and then starting to invest, where once you have some success, you can quickly scale it up and make it meaningful. Like, that makes a lot of sense. And am I right, Dustin, too? And in this model, unlike the convenience store where there's a lot of sort of like stuff to get done before you can actually get $1 in the cash register, the team that you describe are mostly like, you don't actually pay them until they do stuff, right? So you can find a property manager, a contractor, a mortgage broker, who all these people are, and then assemble them. And then as you start buying stuff, then you start to pay them out of the proceeds. It's not like you have a team sitting around on payroll before you have a property. And I guess that's one of the unique things about a real estate business, right?
Yeah, let me give you 2 also key points. So these experts are going to make sure that you do it right too. It's not like you build a business, the convenience store, and then you have to make sure your employees are doing all the right work. No. These are companies that are already doing it. They already know how to do it, how to take care of your property. So they're the experts. Like I coached over 1,000 students now how to successfully invest in real estate. And we'll look at a city and they'll say, hey, Dustin, you invest in the city. You're the expert. Tell me about it. I said, no. I'm not the expert. I might know a little bit, but I hire the experts. And so what it would look like is, let's say, and this happens all the time, I get people tell me, Dustin, I follow what those quote unquote gurus have told me, and I did the entire thing. And then eventually I went to find a property manager. After I bought this property, spent thousands of dollars buying it, fixing it up, and they said they would not manage it because they would get shot there. I'm like, oh, you no longer have an asset, you have a liability. How much better, instead of calling a property manager, saying, property manager, I bought this property, would you manage it? And they say no. How much better would it be if you said, property manager, I'm looking to buy this property. How much will it rent for? What's the vacancy factor? What's the clientele like? Like, tell me about the property and will you manage it? Well, if they say no, then you don't waste the time and money. on that property. But what you do is if they say yes, then they're going to tell you how much you could rent for. They're going to tell you how much it's going to cost to fix up. They're going to make sure you do it right. So that's the first key point is we hire the experts, and they are the ones that are going to make sure we do not buy a money pit, that we buy a property that's going to make us money. So that's the first point. The second point is, oh my goodness, when you think about cash flow, if you make an extra, let's say $500 a month in passive income, which that's like, if you get a minimum of $250, $300, $350 a month, that's a lot of money. When you think about, if you have $250 a month, that's $3,000 a year. I have properties making me $1,000 a month because the longer you hold it, the more the rents go up. But here's the way that I became financially independent. Let's say I have one property that makes me $500 a month in passive income, which is very, very doable. You might be thinking it's hard. No. It's actually very simple. But that's $6,000 a year without working. If you had 10 properties at $500 a month, that's $60,000 a year without working. That's $5,000 a month. 20 properties is $120,000 a year in passive income. And so for me, I have 30 plus properties now. I have short-term, long-term, even medium-term, like 30, 60, 90 days. I have 355 unit apartment complex. We're also now closing on a 375 unit apartment complex. I have hotels. But if you think about, you collect assets. These assets make you money. And remember, I said we build a business. You do not buy. And this is where in 2008, I saw so many people real estate investors go bankrupt. I was worried, thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me? I made more money in the crash of 2008 because I was not speculating, which means I was not hoping for the value to go up. I was not hoping that appreciation would go up. I invested for cash flow because my family cannot eat appreciation, but they can eat the cash from the cash flow. So here's what happened. Sadly, all these real estate investors went bankrupt because they were not, and they were investing for appreciation. Sadly, people lost their homes in foreclosure, which was a bummer, but they have to live somewhere. So they became renters. My rent started skyrocketing because there were so many more renters. And this is the reason why I talk about building a business first. Give you a quick example, thinking of going along the lines of a convenience store, just like if you're having a podcast or if you're like any business, this is what you're going to do. But I'll break it down simple. If you're going to have a candy bar business where you can buy a candy bar and you knew that you could buy it for 50 cents and all day, every day, you could sell it for $1. He's like, man, I'll just buy as many as I can and sell them. I'll keep making money. Well, that's a great thing. You'll make money. That's a business. But what you would not do, you would not buy a candy bar for $2 if you could only sell it for $1. Why would you do that? You go out of business because you'd lose $1 every single time. Same thing with real estate investing. We do not buy a property unless we're making $300 or $400, $500 a month or more in passive income. But here's one quick last thing. Great thing about real estate investing on top of everything I've been sharing. Let's say you didn't even have 50 cents to buy that candy bar, but it cost you 25 cents to borrow 50. Then you're out of pocket 75 cents, but you sell it for $1. You're going to make 25 cents. You're like, how can I borrow more money? And so this is the amazing thing about real estate investing is we make cash flow. The values go up. We take that money out. I never sell properties anymore. I can take that money out in a cash out refinance, tax free. Again, tax. If I sell the property, I get taxed. Why would I sell it? I don't get passive income anymore and I get taxed. Why don't I keep it and then refinance and pull the cash out, tax free loan, and then buy more properties? That's what I'm talking about. When you build a business, you can scale because you have other people doing the work for you, experts doing the work for you. And then you can also recycle that money over and over and over again. That's how you get passive income in $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year in passive income and more. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great breakdown. Yeah, that was awesome. And I want to like not shortchange ourselves on the back end of the conversation. So I want to kind of zoom into the current state of Dustin with your business. And I have three things I think we want to break this down into, and maybe there's more, but sort of the current snapshot of your real estate business. And you kind of just mentioned there's 30 properties, hotels, multifamily. So that maybe we can touch on that real quick. And then talk more about the education side of what you're doing now, right? Because you're helping other people do this. And then I really want to dig in a little more detail on the podcast side, because I think that's really fascinating. Obviously, people in our audience care about podcasting, and I'd love to hear about your podcast network and things. But if you think that's appropriate, we could just
please
kind of wrap up the real estate investing, and then we can talk more about your education business, and then we'll transition into podcasting before
I'll share with you how I got started. So I went and got financial freedom because I was quitting my job because I had plenty of properties. Then people were asking me, just like everybody listening here, you have something that people ask you, How do you do this? Or you're already doing this. How do you do it? Whatever it might, your hobby, whatever it might be. Well, I got a clue that other people wanted to learn what I was doing because they were saying, hey, Dustin, you're not working. You're making money in real estate. Teach me. So I was teaching friends and family members because it was fun. I realized I enjoyed doing that. But then I also realized I had plenty of free time. There's only so much golf and weightlifting that I could do that I said, you know what, let me start helping people. So fast forward, started coaching people and started a podcast. It's called the Master Passive Income Podcast. We're over 2.2 million downloads now. And it's literally like a solo show, me just teaching how to do all this real estate investing because I've made my goal. My first goal was to quit my job. Check, got that. Second goal now is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. Because when I help one student buy their first property, I feel fulfilled. When I bought my first property, I didn't feel fulfilled. It was an accomplishment. When I quit my job, it was an accomplishment, but I felt like I needed more. But when my students buy their first property, I feel fulfilled. Like I helped another human being get what they most wanted in life. But yeah, so with Master Passive Income, we've got coaching. My students now that I've coached are now coaches at Master Passive Income. They say, Dustin, I see the million people that you want to help to invest. We want to be a part of it. Said, man, you've graduated. You've done so well. In fact, one of my specifically, like one of my head coaches came over from the Bahamas as a college student, really want to start investing 2019 into 2020, started coaching with me. He now, from 0 properties, he has 29 cash flowing properties, or 25 total units. And he's just about to be financial independent, also getting his green card too. So in just little over 4 years, he's got 29 units. And this is not uncommon, but it's as hard as you're going to work, that's what's going to get out. So for me, it's all about helping 1 million people to invest in real estate. But also, I love coaching them. We have group coaching. I also love connecting people. We have the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference now. Like all my students said, hey, we meet together on Zoom. Why don't we get together in person? I said, well, let's do that. So we have the annual conference where it's 3 days just coaching people. We have actually even monthly meetups. We have Charlotte, Denver, and Phoenix, and hopefully soon New York and Los Angeles. We're going to create monthly meetups and we already have them going, but we're investors. It's all about connecting people. It's all about having an abundance mindset where there's more to go around for everybody. The more people that I help and serve in my life, the more money I make and the more money they make and the better everybody's life gets.
I love that. Yeah. I, again, sort of on the periphery of real estate investing and, knowing you a little bit, knowing several people in a deeper way. One thing I always hear about real estate investing as a community is that it's a community and it's very communal and it's very abundant and it's not like dog eat dog.
It should be, but honestly, like sometimes you can get into areas where people are pretty cutthroat and they're only concerned about themselves. That's why I'm on a mission to change that to where, just like podcasting, like you get a bunch of podcasting room, it's fun. You're like, hey, we're brothers, let's all go together.
And that's where I was going to go with that statement is like,
exactly.
There's a lot of parallels to kind of the podcasting economy, if you will. Of course, there's bad apples and people spoil the bunch pretty quickly. But yeah, so that's great. So I think we got a good snapshot of your real estate portfolio and sort of what you built over. I guess that's a long time. That's like 19 years from when you first had your first investment. And then when did you start more the education arm when people started asking you and you're like, yeah, I can coach you? Like how long ago back was that?
2015 into 2016. I started my podcast. I think it was 2017-ish, but started, just coaching people, started a blog, wrote some books. And so from that, I just realized that how much fun it was teaching people because I make my money through real estate. In fact, I think I might have mentioned this, but we have in Tennessee, we just got under contract a 375 unit apartment complex because I'm an investor. That's what I keep doing. But in the end, I'm just like, hey, I'm just your guide. Like think of it like as your next door neighbor that figured out something. And then now with my podcast, I literally talk and so if anybody here's a podcaster, one thing that I've learned is that you need to talk to in your podcast, the one person listening, even though like lots and lots of people listen, you have lots and lots of people listening, you need to talk to the one person because in the end, it's just one person listening, even though there's many one people. If you focus on that one person, that person's going to really start realizing, man, I like this person. I like how they're saying. I like what they're saying. And honestly, like I have a high energy, meaning like you could tell, like I'm really excited. That's who I am. I don't even drink coffee much, so it's just who I am. But if somebody doesn't like my personality, great, there's other people. So they'll turn off the podcast, find somebody else. But the people that resonate, that's why I love podcasting so much. And that's my favorite medium. If I were to cut out the books or my YouTube channel, social media, you name it, like all that stuff, and just did podcasting, that's literally my favorite. I don't know why, but I've realized that I've coached over thousands of students now. I would say 90% of them come from my podcast. And here's the reason why. And so one other thing that I've learned about podcasting, people come for the content, but then they stay for the host. They stay for the host because they like how that person says it, what they're saying, and they start feeling like they're connected. So when I have my conference, I walk down the halls, people come to me, I've never met them before, but they feel like they're my best friend because they hear me every single week. And I, as best I can, treat them like they're my best friend too, because I thank them so much for just, hey, you listen to the show. You don't have to. That's great. But number two, you came to my conference. So you're here together. This is great. And so in the end, what I found about podcasting, and honestly, like the online business world, it's another way to serve people. If you realize this, honestly, in life, the only businesses that I create now are service businesses that makes people's lives better. Now, it could be selling a product, it could be whatever it might be, but I try to think, how can I serve more people? Because if you serve more people, their lives get better, they make more money, then I, at the same time, make more money, my life gets better. It's a win-win-win all around.
Yep. Love that. And that's what I'm all about, which I think is why, to be honest, I resonated with you. A lot of people walk around PodFest, if they're wearing a passive income shirt, I might be like, yeah, it's a bro marketer, like that sort of thing. But I met you and I think it was Justin, right? Just ironically, of course, it's Dustin. It's like how I opened the show, Justin, Rustin, Rusty, Dustin. So the first person I met with the T-shirt, the Successfully Unemployed T-shirt, was Justin. And then he's like, oh, you got to meet Dustin. I'm like, okay, this is getting weird already. And so anyway, but I totally agree with that. Like it's all about win-win-win relationships. That's how I see the world. That's how I view podcasting and the work that we do with our coaching too. And again, I think that's why there's so much resonance. So you mentioned podcasting. If you had to wipe it all away, like that's the one medium that you would stick with. 90% of your clients or students come in that way. I'm sure you get leads and deal flow and things like that for investing that way.
In fact, I just, with the 375 unit apartment complex, I have investors. So we're raising $9.2 million. The purchase price is $25 million. We're buying like 60% of the market value. So anyways, fantastic deal. And so we need to raise some money. And so I just put it on my podcast. I've done it before. In May of last year, I raised $1.5 million because remember, people come for the content, but they stay for the host. They start trusting the host. People have listened to me for years, and I've never let other people invest. Usually it's just my own deals. So I just invest my own deals. But I had so many people asking me, tell me, Dustin, we trust you, or I trust you. I want to invest with you. Bring a deal so I can invest with you. Eventually I did it. Last year May was the first time I did it. And I had 1.5 million dollars total from all the investors. And this one that we're raising as well, it's literally about serving and saying, hey, I'm doing my own deal. If you want to invest with me, you absolutely can. So we're probably going to be raising, I'm probably on my own going 2.5 million, but we got a total of 9 million. But in the end, it's all about serving other people. If somebody wants to, buy their own real estate, well, I'm going to help them there. If they want, hey, Dustin, I don't have any time. I'm a doctor. I don't have any time, blah, blah, blah. I completely get it. We have other routes for you to invest. I even have, one last thing, Dustin, I even have a done for you program. Let's say somebody says, Dustin, I don't want to invest in your deals. I want to have my own deals, but I don't have the time to actually do all the work that you talk about doing, the courses and everything. I'm like, good. I created a done for you program, which we literally have people that are already doing the business that I've curated for myself. I'll just give you my business and you can have everything. And so anyways, it's all a means to an end to serve people. But I found podcasting by far connects you with so many people, and then coming on other people's shows and meeting great people. I mean, it's such a win-win-win all around. And one last thing I got to say, because I've been podcasting for so long and I met so many great real estate investors, I created a podcast network. So
that's actually where I wanted to make sure we didn't miss, because this is unique. So to kind of set
we have 7 shows total.
If you're driving down the road and you're like, hey, real estate, this is cool. Like podcast network, I think this is really unique and exciting and something I don't know that much about. So yeah, Dustin, you just kind of going into it, and I interrupted you to sort of like, hey, let's pay attention to this. So tell us about this podcast network. what's that mean? What's it for? What's it good for as far as your business goes? And
Yeah.
enlighten
So
some people.
here's what I realized was that podcasting for me is my favorite thing. Now we do put the podcast on YouTube video and all that sort of stuff, but in the end, it's all about podcasting. So as I've been coaching people, I've met more and more real estate investors who have done successfully well. And they started coming to my conferences and they started realizing, man, Dustin, he wants to help people. I see that vision. I want to help people too. And so the podcast network is basically other real estate investors who are a part of Master Passive Income now, where they have their own shows. Like we have Passive Income Life. My friend Zach Zimmer, we met through my conference. He's a good guy, awesome real estate investor, lots and lots of money. But he's like, I want to teach advanced investing, like how to invest in notes or how to buy big apartment complexes. I want to do that. I don't need to go through all of them, but we have 6 other shows of real estate investors. One other quick one I'll share is a friend up in Canada. She said, she came to my conference. We got to know each other through podcasting. She said, Dustin, I want to bring my podcast underneath the Master Passive Income brand because I know everything you've built up. I want to be a part of it so we can cross promote, we can help each other. And then anybody in Canada wants to invest, you can send them up here. And anybody in the United States, I can send them down to you. I said, this is great. So in the end, what it came down to is, how can we create win-win-wins for everybody? So the other hosts, I don't say, I'm taking all the money, blah, blah, blah. It's like, how do we help each other? Well, we can do all the work. All you got to do is provide the content. And then we're just going to help each other out. So that's my vision for the Master Passive Income Podcast Network. It all revolves around real estate or mainly passive income, that idea of making money, becoming financially independent. But usually it's revolving around real estate. I do have one show that's on YouTubing. It's called YouTube Passive Income. I have a really good friend of mine. It makes tons of money on YouTube doing passive income with YouTube. And he's like, man, I want to have a podcast too. I'm like, yes, come on, you can be a part of it. But in the end, it's all about cross promoting and helping each other in all of our podcasts, because it's hard podcasting, especially when you're just starting out, getting 5 downloads, like, oh man, this is so much work and I get very little. Well, this is a way for me to immediately build people up because of, offloading my, rapport that I have with listeners, but then also building them up as well.
No, that's really cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And if you're not familiar with the podcast network, obviously there's a network effect, and you've got 7 people and maybe growing from there, but they've got some cross-pollination, some like common interest. And here, in this case, it's investing, real estate investing, passive income. And so, I got to imagine then the hosts get to talk to each other, and then maybe you share guests, or they're guests on each other's shows, or you can do an ad for one show and another show. Maybe you share, a central email database or something like that.
All the above.
With your
yes,
contacts.
You're 100% right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And also, one thing I do too, so when I go into other shows, as best I can, I provide a lot of value. And then at the very end, usually one of the hosts is saying, hey, do you know anybody else? I'm like, of course, I have other people that would love to be on your show. And then you could be on their show. And it's just as best as we can. If we keep serving each other, how can we help each other? My goodness, everything just gets so much easier and better in life.
1,000%. Well, this is awesome. And I want to kind of pass the mic to you for a minute. And you can, if you're like, hey, this prompt is horrible, I had something else I want to do, that's fine. But in my mind, I was like, man, most of our listeners are entrepreneurs. And so, hopefully they're generating some active income. Maybe they got some savings put away and they're probably reinvesting in their business. But I think we all reach a point where we're like, you know what? I need to diversify this. I think this idea of real estate investing, I'm in a big tax bracket. I'm like, I need to do something here that's different than just my business. So say someone's like, I got $100,000. I believe in this idea of building a business first. I just don't really know where to start. Like, maybe give us some step-by-step for them. Obviously, you can direct them to your site and your podcast and deeper resources, but sort of just to give someone conceptually, like, here's the first 4 steps or whatever that you should be thinking about. You got $100,000, you're, and you want to move towards financial independence and passive income through real estate. And I'm saying, Dustin, I know you know this. Teach us.
Awesome. So I'll do one, hopefully better.
Okay.
I'm going to give away to everybody a course completely for free. And I've had people invest with that. Do you mind if I do that?
Yeah, let's do that. That's awesome.
So I'm going to start with that, but then I have 4 things I want to walk you guys through. So first, get my real estate investing course. You can get it completely for free. Text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777. rental to 33777, or go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course. All one word, masterpassiveincome.com/free course. This course will literally walk you through the entire process. Find a property anywhere in the country, build a business. Because I invest in Texas, Ohio, Arizona, Indiana, and Tennessee. And I'm going to show you how to do that anywhere, how to scale the business after you build it to where you can become financially independent. So get that. Check, number one. Now, number two, I'm going to give you something that I wish I would have learned a long time ago, that you must implement this into your mindset. Because once you do that, this is not necessarily real estate investing. This is like total. So there are 4 legacies that we need to have in our life. 4 legacies. So number one, obviously, like I said, go get my course. That'll help you get on the path to this first legacy. First legacy is a money legacy. We need to have financial independence. Once we have money, then we can afford the things that we want in life. But then that leads into the next legacy. The next legacy is time. Money affords us time. And that's the one commodity you always spend, you can't earn, make, create, or get any more of, is time. I guarantee you, if you went to Warren Buffett and you said, hey, how about we trade age and I get all your money and your age, 90 years old almost, but you get my age and no money, he'll say, yes, in a heartbeat, 100%, I'll do that. So time, money leads into time. Time now to where you have the money to do whatever you want, go wherever you want, spend that time however you want. But then that next one leads into the third legacy that you need. Let's say you spent all this time building up real estate or businesses or whatever. Your relationships start to wane a little bit. That's the third legacy. Money leads into time. Time now, once you have all the time in the world because you have 40 plus hours of your life back, then you have a relationship legacy. You build up all those relationships around you, serving your family, serving your community, serving the people, going to church, whatever it might be. Money leads into time. Time leads in a relationship. Now, the last one. This is what I wish I would have known. Now, I said this earlier. The only businesses that I ever create now are this fourth legacy. Money leads into time. Time leads in relationship. Relationship leads into a service legacy. The last one is a service legacy where if you serve more people, you'll make more money. Give you an example. Let's say you have a job. You might say, well, I work for a company and we have lots and lots of customers, so we serve a lot of people. No. You serve your boss. You serve one person. Okay, well, let's say, you have a small business and you have, let's say 500 customers. Well, you have 500 mini bosses, which is not bad. Don't get me wrong. It's not bad. It's better than having one boss.
Yes.
But you also have 500 bosses. How much better if you figure out, how do I have 5,000 small bosses, 5,000 customers, or 5,000 people I could serve, or 5 million people that I can serve? The more people that you can serve in life, the better your life gets, because they're getting what they want. Remember, you're serving them. You're not just taking their money. If you give them what they want, which for me, I teach people how to invest in real estate. I've done this thousands of times. The more people that I serve, the better their life gets. Then they give me a little bit of money for my time so that I now am getting a reciprocal. We both benefit, but they literally get financial freedom by what I teach them. In fact, one quick last thing I'll say, because money leads into time leads into relationships leading into service. I get on my coaching calls with my students, big group coaching call on Zoom. Students at the very end thank me for my time. Now they're paying me. Don't get me wrong. They're paying me, but they'd say, Dustin, thank you so much. We know you don't have to do this, but thank you for being and taking this time to be here with us. When you focus on the service legacy, my goodness, you will not want to do any other type of thing. Like, I don't build businesses for money anymore. It's all for service, because if I do that for service, everything takes care of itself.
Yep. No, that's awesome. I love that. I'm glad you said, hey, I got the, step-by-step tactical stuff. That's what I do all day. That's easy. And we'll recap how people can get that in a second. But I like let's really capstone this conversation with the legacy side of this. And I think a lot of people think of legacy. They might think of like my great grandkids or something like that. But we mostly think of money. And so I like that idea, though, that that's the first, money. You gotta first solve the money problem, become financially independent so you can free up your time. And then when you have the money and time, that gives you much more freedom of relationship. and then the freedom of relationship. These are sort of like strategic coach terms, or I'm saying freedom of or freedom to. The one he does not talk about that you did that I actually love a lot is the fourth, which is service. And, service can mean what service means to you. If it's an outgrowth of your faith and it's a charitable thing, or it's, however you want to express that. But I think the idea that if you're an entrepreneur and you just keep your focus on serving better and serving more and serving in a bigger way, because you're an entrepreneur, the way that that's measured is usually through a return of money. And then, it's a virtuous cycle, and you're actually helping people, and you're benefiting and they're benefiting. And it goes right back to the win-win-win relationship that you talked about in real estate investing, education, and that we share so much in podcasting. So yeah, Dustin, that was amazing, man. I guess to close this out here, I think you're going to repeat like the next step is like to go grab this amazing course that you've offered. But any closing thoughts or anything before we kind of recap where people should go next to go deeper into your world?
Well, definitely. Well, my podcast. Like, if I were to point you to anywhere, it's my podcast. Because I have people binge the entire show because it's literally me just coaching, just over and over again, teaching how to do this stuff, all types of different topics. So that's number one. But number two,
master passive income, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you know what, Dustin, so cool. Somebody told me the other day, said, hey, if you look up real estate investing on Apple Podcast, you're number one, like above all the other big shows. I'm like, yes, that's so cool. I'm number one on Apple Podcasts if you search up real estate investing. But that's definitely. And then if you change your life now, like just buy one property after another, because one thing that I love is I love quotes or proverbs. Well, my proverb that I just love is, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, it was 20 years ago. The next best time is literally today. So what you don't want to do is think 20 years from now, oh man, I was listening to Dustin's show. It's so awesome. And he had this other Dustin on there talking about real estate. I wish I would have bought a property back then. Because if I just bought one property every single year for 20 years, then you have 20 properties, hopefully making a minimum of $500 a month. That's $120,000 a year.
Yeah.
Or more, $240,000. I mean, you make so much money. So the next best time is literally today. So if you don't take action, it's not going to get better. So that's another one. But also, so definitely check out Master Passive Income Podcast, my YouTube channel as well. We have that as well. But you get the free course, text the word rental to 33777. But also, I have actually been having a lot of fun on social media. I never thought I would, but I really started getting Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram, the Dustin Heiner, THE Dustin Heiner, and reach out to me. I love getting DMs. I love chatting with people. I love helping people because, again, that's just another way to help 1 million people, just another person in the link. Because in the end, I realized, so when I start my conference, the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, every year I'm signing a contract with a hotel for $300,000+ to put on this event. And if nothing goes right, I owe $300,000. The reason why I do that, though, is because of my goal to help 1 million people. And that's what gets me out of bed, because now having a vision to help people has literally changed my life. And now that's all that I want to do. Now this 1 million person goal. So hopefully you listening, you're one of those 1 million people. I want to see you change your life. Literally get my free course. In fact, I have people that listen to my podcast say, just from listening to your podcast, I invested and I'm successful. And also people, just from your real estate course, the free one that you gave away, I've done that. So in the end, it's all about helping as many people as possible.
I love it, man. That's so cool. So yeah, so Master Passive Income Podcast, text rental to 33777. I always like to see, masters at work with just being clear and be like, hey, I've created this resource. I know it works. I'm confident. And here's a really simple way to get it. And if you're not the texting type, it was masterpassiveincome.com/free course, right?
Yep. That's it.
Well, Dustin, it's always great to meet another Dustin. There aren't that many of us out there, and we kept the pure form of our name, which I respect. Not dissing the Dusties and the Rustins and the other people that are going to be in my group and probably hear this podcast. But no, this was honestly a lot of fun, very refreshing. I love the idea of real estate investing is just another business type, but a really special one, and one that it can be a tool for entrepreneurs outside of their maybe traditional ways that they think about their core business, which is our audience. And really endorse the work that you're doing. Love your heart for service, and look forward to continuing our conversations. And I'm going to keep learning from you on this front. So thanks again for being here. Very gracious, and much gratitude for the time that you've shared with us.
Thanks, Dustin. Thank you so much for having me on the show, man.